Joining us now is Attorney at Law Martin George to give his perspective on the government's recent defeat at the Privy Council and the calls for local government elections to be held. Mr. George, good morning, and thank you, as always, for joining us.
Good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, well, Mr. George, I know that you have been monitoring this situation. Well, the Attorney General says this is not a defeat for the state, and the Privy Council has said the people of Trinidad and Tobago have a right to vote. Mr. George, make some sense of this for us.
Well, I think it is pellucid from the judgment of the Privy Council. And, of course, we make note of the fact that it was a split decision. It was 3 law lords against 2 dissenting law lords. But it doesn't matter. It's a majority decision, and it's a valid and binding decision. And basically what they said is that the government had no authority based on that legislation that was introduced to extend the life of the corporations by another year. They even went further and they spoke about democratic principles, and they said that it's the people who are supposed to choose their representatives, not the government. So, when the Attorney General came out and gave his press conference, it appeared more than curious the manner in which he sought to, disaggregate the results and then sought to be counting judges even down to the Court of Appeal level, which is quite bizarre, given the hierarchy of courts, which is something you learn in first year. The first year that you enter law, you learn that. You learn there's a hierarchy of courts, and, once something moves from the High Court to the Court of Appeal, then whatever decision the Court of Appeal gives in that matter, that is the decision. Then from the Court of Appeal, our final Court of Appeal is the Privy Council. So therefore, whatever decision the Privy Council gives, that is the binding decision on the matter. You don't ever seek to then go back, and this is not a numbers game. So, I found it rather alarming, the manner in which he sought to, turn this into, a guessing game, making it look like, Wheel of Fortune, you count judges, so you go down to the Court of Appeal and you said, well, 3 of our Court of Appeal judges agreed with the government's position. That's rubbish, with the greatest of respect. Yeah. I'm sorry to be so forthright, but you can't be playing games with serious issues such as this, particularly when there are 14 municipal corporations. 14 corporations. You have aldermen, you have councillors, you have mayors, you have persons who just really don't know what to do. You have staff, you have workers, you have burgesses. If you understand me, everybody's in limbo. And, instead of being, showing some sort of proper leadership and guidance and saying, well, hey, look, all right, okay, we accept and respect the decision of the Privy Council. Let's see how we can fix this and make it right. This is the way forward. These are the steps we are going to take for you burgesses, for you councillors, for you mayors, for you aldermen. These are the guidelines that we suggest in the interim, These are the things we want to do to get it right. That's what should be done, instead of coming out and trying to give this spin on it, as if you're on a children's playground, and you're saying, well, I have more marbles than you. That was, I think, particularly disappointing, I must say,
yeah.
In terms of the response.
I'm also cautioned that because the judgment had a political dimension, there are those who will misrepresent the decision to score political points. What does this mean, Mr. George, if anything, or if so?
Well,
what does this mean politically for the government?
And the funny thing is, that statement was made, and then you look at the entirety of the press conference and you wonder if it isn't a case of the pot calling the kettle black, because you look at the whole thing and you begin to wonder, but isn't this also political spin? You ask yourself. The fact of the matter is that, of course, it's a politically charged issue, because you had members of the opposition constantly calling on the government saying, hey, listen, elections are due, call the local government elections. Instead, this legislation was brought. Now, the fact of the matter is, it may have been well-intentioned. It may have been, through misguided actions that this legislation was brought. But at the end of the day, we all recognize and accept that the Privy Council has ruled that it was wrong. So let us be man enough to stand up and say, hey, listen, all right, it was wrong. Let us try to get it fixed. And I think that's what is necessary. We need to have it shorn of all the political hubris and the cut and thrust of the political guile and the one-upmanship and the showmanship and the pretense. Let us try to be serious about the business and the people of Trinidad and Tobago for once. Just once, we ask our politicians on both sides.
What does this mean politically for the government?
The opposition will fall upon them to be mature about how they approach this going forward.
But what does this mean politically for the government?
Well, I mean, of course, it's egg on the face. I think it's nothing other than that. I mean, and no amount of, rhetoric or, grand charge, grandstanding is going to change that. It's egg on the face for the government. And, I mean, the point is this happens in the cut and thrust of the political arena. So, I mean, it's not something that the government is, unused to. It happens. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. That's part and parcel of the game of politics. But the fact of the matter is, do not prolong it as a game when you have serious issues to consider. You have municipal corporations that are sitting in limbo. You have some of the, burgesses and councillors, some of them saying, well, look, we've had meetings, we don't know what to do, we have finance committee meetings, we have staff to pay, we have payrolls to deal with. What do we do? They need guidance, and this is what governance and leadership is about. And unfortunately, arising out of this judgment, we have not seen much guidance and leadership from the government at all in this regard.
And when questions were posed to the Attorney General on when local government elections would be held, the AG said he would have to get legal advice on this matter. Does the government have a discretion as it relates to this matter, sir? Because there is the feeling that local government elections will have to come, eh?
Yeah, I think the Privy Council decision makes it, pellucid. That they are saying that these persons are supposed to be elected by the people. You cannot continue them in office by government bringing legislation and extending the life of their term, because basically you would have unelected or undemocratically elected persons or selected persons continuing in office. So I don't think there's any room for misinterpreting or misunderstanding what the Privy Council said in that regard. And I think it is clear that local government elections have to be called very soon, because you also have to consider that there must be now some attempt at rapprochement with the opposition to ensure that there's some enabling legislation drafted and crafted to at least cover the acts of these councillors and mayors and aldermen during the period when the term of their office was extended, as the Privy Council has now deemed illegally. Because there's no way you can go and, get that back. You can't pull that back. You can't, take back all the things that were done between the lawful end of their term and up to this point. So, in other words, there are very serious issues to be dealt with. So you have to try to ratify those things. Of course, there will have to be some kind of legislative intervention to do so. But the other aspect that you have to treat with in a mature, sensible, and responsible way is to say, hey, listen, okay, we recognize we have to call the local government elections and we have to do so soon.
What are the repercussions for the government, if any, if they prolong this process?
Well, I think it is clear that they would be, flying in the face of a clear decision of the Privy Council. As I said, even a majority 3-2 decision is a decision. So let's not split hairs and, try to play games on that issue. It's a decision of the Privy Council, and it is clear that they've said that these terms of office were extended illegally. So the longer you continue to fiddle while Rome burns, the more you are, putting yourself in breach of the clear directives from the Privy Council and, of course, their clear interpretation of the law. So why would a government wish to deliberately continue to act in a manner that has been declared and deemed illegal? It's not responsible government. And, the time has come, Marlon, for us as citizens, regardless of your political stripe, color, persuasion, whatever color jersey you go to sleep with at night, whether red, yellow, or whatever other colors or shades, it's time for us to all put on the jersey of red, white, and black and say, hey, listen, we are standing up for Trinidad and Tobago, and we need to see proper governance and leadership on issues such as this. Put aside the partisan politics, put aside the pettiness and the bacchanal and all the things that take place in the parliament. And for once, let's be serious about the business of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, Mr. George, a good way to end our discussion this morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's always a pleasure, Marlon, and a great morning to you and your team.
All right, bye for now. So it's time for another break with a traffic update from Sham Flair.
I see charity deployed.